Today I'm going to answer several Cubase questions, but first, the intro. Hey, what's going on? Chris here from MIXDOWN Online. Now, first, before I start answering those Cubase questions, if you're new here on the channel, feel free to subscribe to the channel, to click the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And for all of you, same as usual, you like the video, just share and like. All right, so now let's start with question number 1. Is there another way to combine audio events on the same track without bouncing? For example, if I crop out a few sounds from a loop, can I consolidate those audio events into one? Now, yes, there's a way you can consolidate those events without bouncing. I prefer bouncing in place, okay? I'm not sure if you were referring to exporting and then importing the event back into your session. That is one way to do it. But let's say I'm happy with this loop that contains several audio events, and I just want to group them and use that as one audio event that I can paste around and use as my main loop. What I would do to start with is to bounce that in place. So I would select all of those audio events, click on audio, and go down to bounce selection and replace these events. And this is going to create a new audio event that I can afterward just, copy over and use that as my main loop. Something else that you can do is to group those audio events into a part. Very simple. I'm going to select my glue tool, select all my parts, click on them, and there you go. Now I have a part, an audio part instead of an event, which means that I can use that part and copy paste that in my project and use that like if it was an audio event. But it's not an audio event, so I cannot fade in and fade out the edges of that event. But if I double click on it, it's going to open the part editor, which is going to give me access to all events part of that audio part. So I can tweak things around and then just copy paste that. This is actually a very practical tool, because for example, if I want to copy this loop, that entire loop twice or, 2, 3, 4 times, and then change one part, I can do so. I double click on it. I can change the order around or just remove some events. And there you go. I can just resize this one and use this one as its own part, so they're all independent from each other. So you can tweak them separately if you want to, which is quite practical. So this is one way you can do so. If you want to dissolve the part, what you can do is just select the part that you want to dissolve and go into audio, and then you go down to dissolve part. And there you go. Now I am back to audio events on my audio channel instead of a part. So this is one way you can consolidate several events all together and use that new part event as a loop. Hi Chris, when you import a MIDI file into Cubase, it snaps to the project's BPM. Is there a way to prevent this? Example, I have a MIDI file recorded at 90 BPM. If you bring it into a new default 120 BPM project, the MIDI file shrinks to fit 120 BPM. Can it be imported as is without fitting to the 100 BPM tempo? Okay, so let's check this out. Now this session is empty and the tempo is set to 120 BPM. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to import a MIDI file by clicking on File and Import and go down to MIDI file. I'm going to click on No to the question, do you want to create a new project? I'm going to click No because I'm going to be using this current project. So now I'm going to select my MIDI file, click on Open. And now, as you can tell, my MIDI file that was originally recorded in 90 BPM is now at 120 BPM like the session. So it actually ignored the tempo data that was recorded on this MIDI file. So what I need to do to solve that problem. I'm going to need to go up on Edit and go down to Preferences. Now under MIDI, you will see MIDI file, and then you're going to see Ignore Master Track Events on Merge. You're going to need to uncheck that option. Click on OK. And now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to re-import the same MIDI file, and we'll see what that is going to do. So I'm going to click on File, Import, go down to MIDI file. You know what? I'm going to create a new project, this time. Click on Create, select the MIDI file, click on Open, and then select a folder to create my new project. And now the new project is set to 90 BPM, like it was recorded originally with this MIDI file that I'm importing into this new project. So this is how you do this. I hope that helps. Let's jump on the next question. Hi Chris, when I get towards the end of a mix, after I've completed all volume automations, I want to adjust the overall volume of one or several tracks using the mixer faders. Is there a way to use the fader of a track in the mix console to increase or decrease the overall volume of that channel, but keep all volume automation as well? All right, so now let me answer your question. Now, this is something that can happen near the end of the mix. It happens to me a lot. When you just need to make some just final adjustments on some tracks, and sometimes that track will already have some volume automation on it. And you don't want to mess around with all of this, and you want to just bring the volume of the track lower or higher without messing around with the automation already in place. Something that you can do if you look at the session I have right now. I have a group channel track, which is my main group track for my vocals, and this is where I actually made some volume automation. So let's say I want to bring down that tracks by a couple of dBs. What I can do is to select all of my automation points, all of the volume automation points of that track, and just bring that down by a couple of dBs. That's it. And I'm just going to click on the first one, and you can click on any of them anyways, doesn't matter much. I'm just going to bring it down by keeping my finger on Control so I stay snapped to the grid. I'm just going to bring that down by a couple of dBs or so, and there you go. So this is a very fast and efficient way to do so. You just bring down the entire automation, the volume automation of your channel, a bit down, and there you go. That will do the trick pretty easily. Now, there's something else also that you can do that can actually be practical if you have like several channels. You want to work that out, all at the same time. You just like, for example, you want to bring a bunch of guitar channels, okay, all at once. You just want to bring them down just a bit. You can use a VCA fader if you have Cubase Pro. So let's just use a VCA on this group channel and bring down the volume of the entire channel. So let's just select the channel. I'm just going to go directly on the mix console, select the channel, right click, and then you will find the Add a VCA Fader to Selected Channels. I'm going to click on this one, and there you go. I have a VCA channel that will control my lead vocal group channel. Okay, so by doing so, if I go back to my project window, let's just write some automation briefly. Got a price to pay. We're all trying to find a way. I don't know if we will find. Using a VCA fader will be more practical, in my opinion, if you're working with several channels instead of only one. But it's also doable. So this is how it looks like, just to give you an idea. So I have my automation made on the VCA fader, and right here I have my regular automation that I already made on my vocal group channel. And as you can see, just behind that automation right here, I also have a visual of the automation made by the VCA fader right here. Okay, so this is also very cool to see directly on the automation lane of my vocal channel. So this is an option that you can also use, if you have Cubase Pro and use the VCA fader. Now, let me show you another option that you can also, that is pretty much easy, is to use the output level of a plugin You know, ideally the last plugin of your chain. So for example, right here I have frequency, which is the last plugin on that channel. And I have the output fader right here that I can just play around with and automate, or just bring down by a couple of dB, and that will also do the trick. And since it's the last plugin in my chain, that will bring down the entire volume of that channel. Okay, so this is not too complicated. If you don't have a frequency because you don't have a Cubase Pro, something that you can use is simply use the Studio EQ from Cubase, which is similar to frequency, but it's a stripped down version. But you also have the output fader on this plugin as well that you can use to bring down the general volume of your channel. And there's always the option of using a group channel track if you want to control the level of your track that already has some automation. So in this case, I would create myself a group channel track and route the output of my vocal track into this group channel track and then automate the level of that track. This is not something that I usually do to serve only one channel. It's very useful if I have several channels to where I want to change the volume of. Okay, like for example, these two synth channels. I already have some automation going on both of those channels. And let's say I just want to bring down the general volume of those channels, or even to automate the general volume of these tracks. I can create myself a group channel track like I just did right here. And by routing the output of those tracks into this group channel track, I'll be able to tone down, just bring down the volume of those two tracks altogether without affecting the general volume automation that I already have on those tracks. Basically, VCA and the group channel tracks I'm going to use to serve more than one channel. Now, if you're thinking of bringing down the gain level of the channel, okay, instead, this is not going to work, okay? And the reason is very simple, because you could actually select the channel settings window and go down to the pre-gain level and bring that down instead. But this is going to affect all the plugins, because if you lower the signal from the pre-gain knob, this is going to bring down the signal level before hitting all the plugins. And this is not something that you want to do at the end of your mix, so just keep that in mind. Does using an effects channel affects the panning of the tracks routed to that effects channel? Say you have 4 vocals, 2 panned hard left and the other 2 hard right. Once it goes through the effects channel, does the pre-effects panning become obsolete? So let me explain to you how that works when you're sending a signal from a track into a stereo effects channel track. What's happening with the panning of that track in relation to the sends. So let's select this electric guitar channel. I'm going to open the channel settings window. Now that guitar track is going into 2 different delays. And this is what I have. The first one right here and the second one, which is delay guitar basically. And if we look at the bottom of that channel, of that section, we have the panning tab. And this is where you're going to be able to pan the send of your channel into your stereo effects channel. Now, the way they are set up right now, if I click on this small arrow, which is the function menu, I have it set up to link panners, meaning that if I move my panner, the send panning is also going to follow that main channel panner. But I can change that around. So let's have just a quick listen to this channel. Now I'm sending the signal of this channel to the left side of the effects channel track. If I want to, I can change that around. So let's go and bring those to the far right instead. And this is how it's going to sound like. Now I'm sending the signal to the right side of the effects channel track just by moving that send panner. Okay, so it's very practical, so you can play around with that if you need to. Okay, so for this one, I decided to leave them as at the same place as the channels panner. And again, if you want to change that around, you can just unlink the panners. And by doing so, the main panner is going to be independent from the send level panners. Okay, so this is how you can do so. So I hope that answers your question. Let's jump on the next one. I would like to know if it's possible to get 2 panning knobs on a stereo group channel. And if so, how can we achieve this? All right, so let's open the any stereo channel. I'm going to go down and look for, there you go, a keyboard channel, and this is what I get here. I have, as a panner, a combined panner instead of a standard panner. So this is gonna be a bit like if you had like a left and a right panner. It's going to act the same way. So I can move them around. This is pretty cool. If you want to just set that up, you need to click right here on the small arrow aiming down, the arrow icon, the select panner. That will allow you to go from the balance panner, which is the standard one, to the stereo combined panner. This is only available on stereo channels, of course. And that is going to allow you to move that panner altogether. The cool thing about this, and I actually use that a lot on the pianos and synths and stuff like that, because if I only use the balance panner, what's going to happen is if I pan this one to the far left, it's only going to pan the all the information on the left side of the signal and not all the information that comes from the right side. So I'm only going to get the left side part of the signal. But if I select the stereo combined panner instead, I'm going to have like the full range signal pan to the left or right or whatever you want to pan the signal to. Okay, so this is very practical if you need to keep that entire stereo sound, all the information found on the left and right side of the signal. And that happens a lot with synths, where you have like a lot of movement going on and sometimes like different sounds that are going to be a bit more present on the left side compared to the right side. And you just want to bring the total of that image, narrow that down and bring that to one side or the other. Use the combine panning tool, and this is going to do the trick pretty well. And you can actually reverse also the left and the right by just, there you go. You just click and drag that up, and you will have the left side becoming the right side and vice versa. So this is also very cool. And if you want to just mono that also, if you bring that to the center, it's going to be a very narrow version of that signal as well. So I hope that is helpful. Let's jump on the last question of this video. Now, this question is related to my vocal throws video that I made a couple of weeks ago. I noticed many people in the comments have exactly the same question as I do. I've always been doing those vocal throws by sending the vocals to an effects channel and then automating the sends on certain words. Any pros and cons of using this method compared to yours? Now, if you didn't watch that video yet, I would suggest you to go and watch it. It's my technique on working with vocal throws in Cubase. Basically, I just create myself an extra audio track where I just drag and drop the words and lines that I want to add delay on to create a vocal throw. Instead of just automating the send level of the original track into the same effects channel, which is a valid option and technique to use. And so that is the question that was asked to me, and is why I prefer creating a track instead of just using some send level automation. I mentioned in the video that I had way more control doing it my way than using the send level automation technique. So I'm going to just rephrase that. So instead of saying that I have way more control, I'm going to rephrase that to I gain just a little bit more control, okay? I'm going to explain to you why. So I have my main vocal channel right here, and I'm using the send level automation technique to send that signal to my delay. And this is how it sounds like. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, the reason why I prefer using the track creation process and just dragging and dropping those specific lines or words to add to that delay to create the vocal throws is, to simply use the non-processed version of that vocal channel instead of the processed version of that signal. And the reason is just to give me a smoother version, a smoother sound and tone that I'm sending into that delay. So by creating myself an extra track and dragging and dropping those events, I'm just dealing with the unprocessed sound, and the tone is a bit more smoother. And this is a personal taste, okay? And also, it's just a workflow thing. I prefer just picking and choosing the words the words and lines that I want, and drag them down into on a track, and I can visually see them right away. It's very easy to edit, to manage. It's a workflow thing for me. I prefer it this way. I'm faster doing it this way compared to adding automation on my original vocal track. All that to say that, using the send effects automation option to do a vocal throw is going to be as good. It's only a personal preference that I prefer to use the other technique. But that's it. Like they say, all roads lead to Rome. All right, my friends, this is going to be it for today. I hope that was helpful. If so, share and like this video. And if you have any comments or questions, you can leave everything down below. If you want to watch more Cubase related videos, feel free to click on this playlist. And until next time, take care and stay safe.